The heavy leather cut felt perfect on his shoulders. Marcus, known to the world as Prez, ran a thick thumb over the patch. President. It was his underneath it. Blue Devils. His club. His kingdom. He sat in his throne room, a sprawling office at the back of the industrial warehouse they called a clubhouse. The space was dominated by his heavy custom-welded chair, a grotesque masterpiece of chrome pipes and black leather. He had just returned from the courthouse. The air still felt electric with his victory. His oldest friend, Rhino, who had been his vice president, was denied bail. It was a plan he had orchestrated so perfectly. A few whispered lies, some well-placed evidence, and the one man who could ever challenge his authority was now caged. Prez felt powerful. He felt untouchable. He was a king in his castle, and his word was absolute, unbending law. He stood up, the chair scraping loudly on the concrete floor. It was time for the meeting. He strode out into the main hall. The air was thick with smoke, cheap beer, and the smell of unwashed bodies. His men, the Blue Devils, fell silent as he approached the front. He stepped onto a small wooden platform. He looked out at their faces. Young, eager prospects stared at him with pure adoration. They saw him as a god. Then there were the older members, the old guard. Men who had ridden with both him and Rhino for 15 years. They stared too, but their eyes were different. They were hard, suspicious, and cold. Prez thrived on this. Control was everything. Brothers. He began, his voice a low gravel that cut through the silence. Today we cut out a poison. He let the words hang. Rhino, he got sloppy. He got greedy. A few murmurs. He raised his hand and the room was quiet again. He was running his own game on our turf, behind our backs. He was dealing with the Vipers. A collective gasp. The Vipers were their most hated rivals. He put this club, our family, at risk. He endangered every single one of you. He was lying, of course. Rhino had been the one arguing against a violent move on Viper territory. A move Prez wanted. Rhino had been a voice of caution, of stability. Prez saw that stability as weakness, as a threat to his absolute power. The law caught up with him, Prez continued, his face a mask of false regret. He is gone. He is no longer a Blue Devil. He pointed to a young prospect. You get the board. The trembling kid ran to a back room and brought out the large wooden charter board. Every member's name was on it. Prez grabbed a hammer and a chisel from a nearby toolbox. He walked to the board, found the name Rhino next to the vice president plaque, and placed the chisel. He swung the hammer once. The wood splintered. He swung it again and again, obliterating the name. There are no traitors in this house, he boomed. The young members erupted, in cheers, stamping their feet, yelling, Prez, Prez, Prez. The old guard just watched. Their silence was an accusation, but they had no proof. And without proof, their silence meant nothing. Later that evening, Prez was in the clubhouse parking lot, admiring his custom motorcycle. Its paint was a deep, midnight blue. A beat-up sedan screeched to a halt at the gate, and a woman stumbled out. It was Sarah, Rhino's wife. She looked broken. Her eyes were red, her hair a mess. She ran toward him, but two of his men grabbed her. Let me go, she screamed. Let me talk to him. Prez held up a hand. His men released her. She ran forward, stopping a few feet away, her body trembling with rage and grief. You did this, she whispered. You did this, Marcus. He hated when people used his real name. He was your brother. He loved you. He was loyal to you. Prez looked at her, his face completely devoid of emotion. Your husband was a liability, Sarah. He made bad choices. Now he is paying for them. He didn't do it, she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. He would never. This was you. You wanted him gone. You were always jealous of him, jealous that the men respected him. Prez stepped closer, towering over her. You need to leave, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. This is club business. It doesn't concern you? This is my life, she cried, collapsing to her knees on the dirty asphalt. He is my husband. He is your brother. How could you? Prez turned his back on her. He nodded to his men. Get her off my property. She is not welcome here again. He walked away, not flinching as her screams and curses followed him. He went back inside, washed his hands, and headed to his office. His sanctuary. He shut the heavy steel door, locking the world out. He was alone, just how he liked it. He pulled a heavy cash box from a hidden safe behind a tapestry of the club's logo. He sat at his desk and began counting the stacks of money. Money skimmed from protection rackets. Money Rhino had wanted to get away from. Prez, however, loved the feel of it, the weight of it. It was tangible proof of his power. He finished counting and stacked the cash neatly. He leaned back in his throne-like chair and poured himself a glass of expensive, 20-year-old whiskey. He held the glass up, toasting his own reflection in the darkened window. "To the king," he murmured, a rare smile touching his lips. He felt it again, that surge of absolute control. He was a king, indestructible. Listen, if you've ever let pride convince you that you are in total control, if you've ever pushed someone else down just to lift yourself higher, type "Lord have mercy" in the comments right now. This story is a powerful reminder that pride always comes before the fall. Prez was about to learn that lesson. He was savoring the burn of the whiskey when it happened. The air in the room changed. It didn't get cold. It became empty. A heavy, unnatural stillness that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He put the glass down. A strange sound began. A low vibration, almost too deep to hear, but he could feel it in his teeth. He looked around. Everything seemed normal, but the feeling of dread was growing. A cold knot in his stomach he had not felt since he was a child. Then he saw it. On the wall opposite his desk, right next to a shelf, sagging with trophies from motorcycle shows and bar fights. A light appeared. It was not a reflection. It was a single, piercing pinprick of white-blue light, so bright it hurt his eyes. He stood up, his chair crashing to the floor behind him. He stared at the light, unable to look away. It began to expand, growing from the size of a coin to the size of a fist. The low vibration intensified. The trophies on his shelf, symbols of his victories and his reign, began to shake. First, just a slight rattle. Then they vibrated violently. Prez watched, frozen, as a thin hairline crack appeared on his biggest trophy, a tall, chromed eagle. The crack split, running from top to bottom. Then another trophy cracked, and another. They were all breaking, shattering on the shelf from this impossible, silent pressure. The blue light pulsed, and with every pulse, the cracks spread. Prez, a man who hadn't felt fear in 2 decades, a man who had faced down shotguns and federal agents without blinking, felt a cold spike of genuine, primal terror. This feeling was not of this world. The man who feared nothing was now trembling in his own throne room. What is this light? What is happening to his kingdom? Don't miss Chapter 2. If you feel that chill running down your spine, hit that like button. Drop a watch comment if you need to see what happens next. Make sure you are subscribed because judgment is coming to the Blue Devils. The tiny, brilliant white-blue light exploded. It did not make a sound, but the pressure it released was immense. The trophies on his shelf did not just crack, they vaporized into a cloud of fine dust. The vibration became a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the warehouse. Prez threw his hands up to cover his face, but the light was not physical. It passed through his arms, through his eyelids. It consumed him. He felt a sensation like falling, a gut-wrenching drop into absolute zero. Then silence. He lowered his arms. He was no longer in his office. He was no longer in the clubhouse. He was standing in a place of impossible size. It was a void, a vast, dark, cold emptiness that stretched into an eternity in every direction. There was no floor, yet he was standing. There was no air, yet he was breathing. His terror was so complete, so profound, that it was beyond screaming. It was a cold paralysis of his very soul. He tried to speak. He tried to yell, "Where am I? Who are you?" But he had no voice. The sound would not form. He tried to move, to run, but his feet were fixed to the dark, invisible floor. He was a prisoner. Then he saw it. In the far, far distance, a single object appeared. It was a throne, but this was not a chair made of metal scraps and arrogance. This throne was massive, the size of a mountain, and it was made of pure, blinding white-blue light. It radiated a power so awesome, so holy, that Prez felt utterly undone. He knew, with a certainty that bypassed his brain and struck his heart, that this was judgment. The presence of the one seated on that throne was palpable. It was an all-consuming fire, a perfect holiness that saw every dark corner of his existence. A wave began to move from the throne toward him. It was not sound. It was not light. It was knowledge. Pure, unfiltered, terrible truth. It washed over him, and his entire life was laid bare. He was forced to see everything, not as he remembered it, but as it truly was. Every punch he had thrown in anger, every lie he had told to gain power, every soul he had corrupted with his pride. The vision focused, zeroing in on his betrayal of Rhino. He saw himself in his office, weeks ago, planting the false information on a burner phone, his mind cold and calculating. He saw himself practicing the lies he would tell the club. Then, the perspective shifted. He was suddenly inside Rhino's mind, sitting in the courtroom, hearing the judge deny bail based on evidence he knew was fake. He felt Rhino's confusion, the sickening, heartbreaking pain of betrayal as he realized his oldest friend. His brother was the one who had put him in this cage. The vision shifted again. He was in the parking lot, looking through Sarah's eyes, feeling her desperation and anguish as he, Prez, stood there cold and dismissive. He felt her scream tear from her own throat. Finally, the perspective zoomed out. He saw his sin from a divine viewpoint. He saw the dark ripple it sent through his club, splitting it in two. He watched the young prospects, who had cheered him, absorbing his poison, their own hearts hardening with pride and cruelty. He saw the faithful brotherhood, the one thing that was supposed to be sacred in their world, shattered into 1,000 pieces by his ambition. The weight of it, the sheer, crushing mass of his guilt, brought him to his knees in the void. He was spiritually naked. His leather cut, his patches, his reputation, all of it was worthless here. He was just Marcus, and he was guilty. I have to pause. If you have ever felt completely exposed before a holy God, if you know what it is to be crushed by the weight of your own choices, type "I surrender" in the comments. It is the hardest, but most important, prayer anyone can ever say. Now, back to Marcus, who was facing the ultimate judge. As he knelt in that terrible, silent place, a new object materialized in front of him. It was his chair from the office, his throne here. In the presence of true power, it looked pathetic. It was small, ugly, and stained with his arrogance. As Marcus watched, a single tongue of brilliant blue flame touched its base. The custom-welded chrome did not just melt, it screamed. It twisted and warped as if in agony, the black leather turning to a foul, acrid smoke. In seconds, the entire structure collapsed upon itself, disintegrating into a pile of worthless ash and cooling slag. The message was unmistakable. His power, his kingdom, his reign. It was nothing. It was ash. Then, a new sensation began, a searing heat on his chest. He looked down. The president patch on his leather cut, the symbol of his entire identity, the piece of cloth he had lied, cheated, and betrayed to protect, began to smoke. It was not a normal fire. It was a holy fire, a spiritual flame that burned with agonizing purpose. He wanted to scream as the patch ignited, the white-blue flames consuming the threads. The pain was unbearable, a purifying agony that seemed to burn straight through his leather, through his skin, and into his very soul. He tried to rip it off, but his hands would not move. He was forced to endure the refinement, to feel his pride be utterly incinerated. The vision vanished instantly. He was on his hands and knees on the cold, hard concrete floor of his office. He screamed, a raw, guttural animal sound that ripped from his lungs. He was gasping, choking, the smell of ozone and burnt thread thick in his nostrils. The room was spinning. He scrambled backwards, his back hitting the wall. He looked around wildly. The room was normal. The blue light was gone. The silence was just silence. He looked at his shelves. The trophies were intact. Every single one, gleaming in the low light of his desk lamp, not a crack, not a scratch. It was a dream. He gasped, his voice hoarse. It was a nightmare, a heart attack. He was drenched in sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He clutched his chest, expecting to feel a terrible physical burn from the fire he had just felt. His hand closed on the rough, thick leather of his cut. But something was desperately wrong. The spot where his patch should be was smooth. He fumbled with his other hand, his fingers tracing the spot. He looked down. The president patch was gone. It was not burned. It was not ripped. It was not singed. It was perfectly, impossibly erased. The leather underneath was clean, as if the patch had never been sewn there at all. He stared, his mind fracturing, the reality of what he had just experienced crashing down on him. This was not a dream. This was real. As he sat there, clutching the empty spot on his chest, feeling the phantom burn deep in his soul, the heavy steel door of his office burst open. Clutch, his sergeant-at-arms, stood there. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a panic Prez had never seen. Prez, Clutch panted, struggling for breath. Prez, we've got a problem. A huge one. Marcus just stared, still on the floor, unable to form words. The old guard, they're tearing the clubhouse apart. They found it, they found the burner phone. They found the evidence you planted on Rhino. His kingdom is crumbling from the outside, and his soul has just been scorched from the inside. He has no patch. He has no power. Is this the end for Prez or the beginning? You must be here for Chapter 3. If your heart is pounding, hit that subscribe button. Comment, "He is risen." If you believe Marcus can be saved from this, we will see you in the finale. Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. He was still on the floor of his office. Clutch, his sergeant-at-arms, was staring at him, his face a mask of terror. Prez, did you hear me? They found the phone? The chaotic sound of shouting and shattering glass echoed from the main hall. It was the sound of his kingdom collapsing, the vision of the burning throne, the erased patch, the agonizing spiritual fire. It had all been real. It was a warning, and it was a verdict. He was guilty. He climbed to his feet, his legs unsteady. He was no longer Prez. Prez was a lie, a hollow shell of pride that had just been incinerated. He was just Marcus, a man who had betrayed his only brother. He stumbled out of the office, Clutch right behind him. The main hall was a war zone frozen in time. On one side stood the new guard, his loyalists armed with pool cues and knives, led by a frantic-looking Clutch. On the other side stood the old guard, the veterans, their faces set in hard lines of disgust. Grizz, the oldest member, a man who had been at Rhino's side for 20 years, stood in the middle. He held up a small, black burner phone. "We found it, Prez." Grizz's voice boomed, silencing the room. "We found it hidden in Rhino's old locker. The one you had the key for. The one with the text you sent, framing him for the Viper deal." The air was so thick with hatred it was hard to breathe. This was the moment. The powder keg, all it needed was one word from him. His loyalists were looking at him, their eyes desperate for an order, ready to shed blood for him, for the lie he had built. Clutch yelled, "Prez, give the order. Tell us what to do." Marcus looked at the faces. He saw the young, angry prospect who was ready to die for him. He saw Grizz, a man he used to call uncle, whose heart he had broken. He saw the division, the poison he had spread. The old Prez would have lied. The old Prez would have started a war, gutted his own club just to stay on his throne. But the man who stood there was not the old Prez. He was a broken, terrified, and humbled shell. He held up a single trembling hand. "Stop." The word was quiet, hoarse, but it cut through the tension like a razor. He walked slowly into the center of the room, into the space between the two factions. He looked at Grizz, then at Clutch. Then he looked down at his own chest, at the bare, smooth leather where his patch had been. "It is true," he said. The confession stunned the entire room into absolute deafening silence. It is all true. Rhino was loyal. I was the traitor. I framed him. I put him in that cage. That silence was louder than any motorcycle engine. That was the sound of a fortress of pride crumbling to the ground. Let me ask you something. What lie are you still holding on to? What truth are you too proud to admit? Type "set me free" in the comments right now, because the truth, and only the truth, will do that for you. Marcus just took his first step into that freedom. But his journey was far from over. The silence in the room turned to disgust. Men who had worshipped him now looked at him like he was garbage. He expected a knife in the back. He almost welcomed it. But no one moved. They were too stunned. Marcus turned his back on all of them. He walked past his custom throne, past the bar he had built, and toward the heavy front door. He did not run. He just walked. No one stopped him. He pushed the door open and stepped out into the cold night air, leaving his entire life behind. He did not take his bike. He did not take his wallet. He just walked away from the Blue Devils clubhouse, a king who had willingly abdicated a throne of ash. His only goal was atonement. He had some personal money hidden, money separate from the club. He used it to drain his bank account. The next day, he sold his custom midnight blue motorcycle, the ultimate symbol of his pride. It felt like cutting off a limb, but he knew it was necessary. He took every last dollar of that money, cash stained with his arrogance, and he walked into the most expensive law firm in the city. He hired the best appeals lawyer they had. He told them the entire truth. He gave them everything they needed to free Rhino. His next stop was the hardest. He went to Sarah's house. He stood on her doorstep for 10 minutes before he could even raise his hand to knock. She opened the door and her face went from confusion to pure, unadulterated rage. She raised her hand to strike him, but he did not flinch. He just stood there. "I know," he said, his voice quiet. "You were right. It was me. I sold my bike. I've hired a lawyer. I am going to fix this. Sarah, I promise you." He did not ask for her forgiveness. He knew he had no right to it. He just stated the facts and left. Months passed. Marcus was unrecognizable. He was no longer Prez. He was a ghost. He worked as a simple mechanic at a garage on the other side of town. He worked 12-hour days. His hands, once clean, were now permanently stained with grease and oil. It was honest work. It was humbling work. The man who used to command an army was now changing oil for soccer moms. He lived in a tiny one-room apartment. On Sundays, he would attend a small blue-collar church down the street. It was simple, a little rundown. But the light that came through the main stained glass window was a deep, peaceful blue. He always sat in the back pew, his head bowed, listening to the words of grace and forgiveness that he felt he could never earn. One Tuesday, his cheap phone rang. It was the lawyer, Mr. Marcus. The appeal was successful. The new evidence was undeniable. Rhino is being released. Tomorrow, 10 in the morning. Marcus dropped the phone, collapsing against the wall of the garage, and wept for the first time since he was a child. The next morning, Marcus was waiting at the prison gates. He was not on a motorcycle. He was on foot, standing in the cold morning mist. He held a simple paper bag with a clean shirt, a bottle of water, and a sandwich. At 10 minutes after 10, the heavy steel gate buzzed and creaked open. Rhino walked out, squinting in the sunlight. He looked thinner, harder, and his eyes were full of a deep, weary pain. He saw Marcus, and he stopped dead. The two men stared at each other across 20 yards of asphalt. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. Marcus could see the storm in Rhino's eyes, the confusion, the betrayal, the white-hot rage. Marcus took a step forward, his hands open and empty. He walked until he was standing right in front of the man he had broken. He looked his brother in the eye, his own tears streaming freely down his face. "Brother," Marcus choked out, his voice cracking. Can you ever forgive me?" Rhino stared at him for a long, agonizing minute. He looked at Marcus's eyes. He saw the missing patch on his chest. He saw the grease under his fingernails. He saw a man who was completely shattered, a man who had lost everything. Rhino, who had found his own fragile faith in the darkness of his cell, saw the truth. The Prez who had sent him here was gone. This was just Marcus. Slowly, painfully. Rhino nodded. He dropped his prison bag and pulled his old friend into a powerful, crushing, forgiving embrace. The story ends not in a loud clubhouse, but in the quiet of that small church, two men side by side in the back pew, their hands held up in prayer. The morning light streams in through the simple blue stained glass, washing over them, not as a president and his subordinate, but as two brothers redeemed. He lost his throne, but he gained his soul. He lost his club, but he found his brother. This is the power of true surrender. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that it is never too late to change. Hit that like button and comment. And if you believe in the power of forgiveness, God bless you, and we will see you on the next ride.